Hello, and welcome to the Modern Sales Pros event. I'm super excited to get started. In today's topic, the business forecasting myths debunked, what you need to be successful in 2024. But before we begin, we'll start things off with a fun icebreaker with our panelists today. And I'd love to know, Stephanie and Grant, what is currently on your watch list, what you have been watching that you really love, whether it be a movie or a TV show. Stephanie, go with you.
Yeah. So let's see. My husband and I love Jack Reacher. I mean, it comes out every I think it's Friday. And so we just wait every Friday. It's like got the perfect amount of like action, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And yeah, we love it. So that's our TV show.
Nice. I love how TV shows are doing once a week rather than Netflix, where you can just binge it all in one day.
Yeah.
You kind of have to wait, and you're like, okay, I can't wait till Friday. I can't wait till Wednesday. Kind of creates
It's
excitement throughout the week. It is very old school, yes.
Which Grant, is nice, because otherwise you watch the whole thing, like you binge it, and then it's like, oh, I've got to wait a year to start over.
Yep. Grant, what about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the binging aspect. I don't know. Maybe it's my personality. I just go hard on something. But the waiting once a week kills me. But this show, I did have to wait once a week as well. It was The After Party on Apple Plus, Apple TV Plus. It's kind of like a murder mystery whodunit type show. Yeah, it's pretty fun. My wife loves that type of shows and got me into it. So yeah, highly recommend.
Oh, I'm adding both on my list, Reacher and After Party. I'm a huge Netflix binger as well. I like both sides, waiting a week and then binging all at once. I recently got into The Bear, which is, I think, on Disney Plus in Canada. They won a bunch of Emmys recently, and I watched season 1 all in one night, and I'm now on season 2. It is such a good show. If anyone has been in the restaurant industry in your past life, and overall the characters and plot is just incredible. So highly recommend. The Bear is amazing. All right, let's get started. Today's event is brought to you by the team at Modern Sales Pros. And for those of you who are not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest and highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, revenue and operations, and enablement, aka our Modern Sales Pros. Our mission is to create an environment for our members to answer questions they struggle to solve on their own and help them to see around corners they may not know about. We do this through live sessions like the one you're at today. We also have an online robust forum, and we also have our summits and our in-person events. So stay tuned. We might come to a city near you. And if you're not already a part of MSP, you'll be invited to join right after this event. Next, housekeeping notes for this event. It is recorded, so if you have a friend or colleague who couldn't make it, rest assured the recording along with key takeaways will be made available on the Modern Sales Pros website before the end of the day. We will also send it to you via email, so stay tuned for that. And second, if you have a question for Stephanie and Grant, please leverage the Q&A function at the top right-hand corner or leverage the chat, and we'll be sure to answer them live. And let us know where you're calling in from. We also want to know about that too. And lastly, this event wouldn't be made possible without our sponsor for today's event, Exactly. Exactly is an AI-powered intelligent revenue platform that gives revenue operation teams the data they need to power sales leaders to plan with agility, motivation, with intention, and predict with conviction. They are on a mission to transform the sales industry with AI to power reps and leaders to deliver results regardless of circumstances. To learn more about Exactly, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Be sure to check them out. They're doing awesome things. Now, enough about me and MSP. I'm going to pass it off to our panelists today. I'm actually going to pass it off to Stephanie to kick things off, and I'll come back for closing remarks. So Stephanie, take it away.
Very good. Thank you, Angelica. Thank you for everyone for joining Grant and myself today. I am the global forecasting strategist here at Exactly. So, kind of known as the forecasting expert, do all things forecasting, engage with our customers, with our prospects, do things like this, work on messaging, and really just enjoy engaging with the customers to really make sure that we're driving value and that we're really understanding the problems that they're experiencing today. So look forward to engaging with you all on these forecasting myths. Grant.
Yeah, Grant Berthold. I'm the Director of Sales Operations, Sales Planning Performance at Workiva. I've been at Workiva a little over 10 years now, and yeah, handle all things forecasting, sales planning, quota, territory setting, and reporting. And so, yeah, I've gotten to see, quite the evolution of Workiva and our processes over the last 10 years in my time there. We, just for a little reference for the audience, if they may not know Workiva, we are a financial reporting software company. We're a SaaS company. And we sold our first product back in 2010, and I joined in 2013. And so we were, still kind of in that startup phase there. And now we've gotten to be a, $600-700 million in revenue company today. And so, yeah, we've gotten to see a lot of transformation over the years. I will say our forecasting transformation was we were maybe lagging. And so I got to, share today a story of kind of our transformation over the last year or two here. And yeah, excited to talk more about that. So thanks for having me on, Stephanie, and thanks, Modern Sales Pros.
Very good. Thanks, Grant. Appreciate that. So today, as we go through this time together, we're going to focus on some myths. So we've got 3 myths for you of things that we hear from prospects and customers as they come in, and just kind of break those down and look at Grant's experience at Workiva and how they've dealt with these challenges. So the first one today is going to be that there's not enough good data, or we hear this one less commonly, or there's just not enough data. And that would really be for companies that are not leveraging the CRM and are taking it out, and it's just there's no actual storehouse. But the one that's most common is going to be that there's just not enough good data. So I'm going to kind of break this down for you from what we're seeing, and then we're going to hear from Grant. So in terms of good data, when you think about what makes it good, it's got to be accurate. We want it to be up to date. And so to get accurate, up to date data, there needs to be a well-defined process. So, what is a stage 1? What's a stage 2, stage 3? And then you think of forecasting process. So, does everybody agree that a commit has the same definition, or is it 3 different things to 3 different people? So really understanding, is everything well defined? And then is it repeatable? So, can it scale? Do we do the same sort of forecasting cadence? How do we engage with that forecast each week, each month, each quarter? And so what we see is that when these things aren't happening, the most common phrase that I hear from prospects and customers is it's garbage in versus garbage out. So the challenge with that is that if reps grow up in different places, and so if they all have a different idea of what a stage 3 deal is or what a committed deal is, then how do management, leadership, sales ops understand and get visibility? So you end up with a lack of hygiene, you end up with inconsistent processes. And when you don't have consistent processes and you don't have a clean pipeline and clean hygiene, then it makes it difficult to identify those trends and insights. So the concern of not having enough good data is valid, but it's what do organizations do with it? So Grant, I'm very curious to see how you have been able to handle these common challenges at Workiva.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you were definitely describing a lot of the challenges that we were experiencing up until, fairly recently. I would say that there was a variety of reasons for some of that, but maybe one of the biggest reasons that we were seeing bad data, inconsistent data, is certainly the process. And I think we can even talk about the process later, but there wasn't a lot of accountability around the sales stages, the forecast process. And part of that, I think, stemmed from the fact that there was a lot of people looking in different places at different metrics. They weren't always matching, and there wasn't a singular scoreboard to show like what's the right view that we should be looking at on the business. What are the metrics that matter? Because I think that really drives clean data, right? Like if you know something's getting eyeballs and everybody's looking at it, that'll magically get clean, right? and we were experiencing kind of a proliferation of, there's a report here, this ad hoc request there, and different things were gaining traction. And there wasn't accountability because there wasn't visibility and a consistency and focus and alignment on the things that mattered. So that was some of the problems we were seeing. And thankfully, with bringing on Exactly Forecasting, we're really able to get people to start to look in a singular place and see that transformation and getting better data.
Yeah. Yeah, that so makes sense. The different places that it's like, the benefit CRM is that, they've got control and, managers can create reports and things like that. But sales staff's nightmare is, are they filtering it the right way? Are they filtering it the same way? So you end up on calls and it's like, well, that's not what I'm seeing. And it's, we're not looking at the same data sets. So I feel like it's one of the easiest ways for a manager or rep to derail a call if they're not ready to present on something like squirrel. And so then it's, okay, let's focus on something different. So I love that, getting it to that singular view. And sometimes the data's in, the CRM, but sometimes it's in disparate systems. So it's like, a lot of times management reps are going to be like, ugh, it's too hard to find that data. So I'm just going to go with my gut, which causes challenges of its own. So love that. One of the words that just is music to my ears that you mentioned was accountability. So I'm curious to hear more about what that looks like for Workiva and how you've been able to really, enforce the process and drive that accountability there.
Yeah, I definitely can go into that. So high level, right? Maybe just a quick overview of our process. We do have weekly forecast pipeline review calls, right? We kind of blend them into one call, right? It's a forecasting call and a pipeline review. And we pull up the same metrics for every sales team across the organization, right? So there's, we got a screen, there's probably like 20 different ones on there, but it's right there and Exactly Forecasting. And people know that these are going to be shown. And so just the fact that those are the ones that are being shared every single week with everyone, they have gotten so clean. Like I can say I've been at Workiva over a decade and we've never had data as clean as we do today because it is actually, people are looking all in the same spot. And so like that alone has really helped clean it up. And then on, off cycles or times where, throughout the week when we're not having a forecast call, we've set up alerts within the system. Within XF, they can see on their pipeline deal tab, hey, here's like the 5 different things on your op that are, you have past due close dates, or you didn't add a partner to this deal, or all the different things that we want them to clean up and make sure that they're adhering to. There's alerts within the system for them to see that, as well as a pipeline quality hygiene dashboard that we have. That's kind of, what we call is like the dashboard you don't want to be the leader on, right? Like it's the one that you don't want to be at the top of the list because that means you have, more things to clean up. So all those things combined, really help drive accountability across the organization, right? I mean, it's simple, right? You don't want to be seen as the person that's, holding up this deal or a conversation. And so people are just naturally cleaning that up when they know that there's eyeballs across it from.
Oh yeah. And, I used to be a rep and it was like, okay, how do I, number one, keep my manager off my back? How do I get less phone calls? But like when you're in those forecast calls, how do I stay out of the hot seat? And so it's like, okay, if I complete these alerts that I'm getting less questions, there's not an interrogation. If I'm not on the dashboard, then it means, okay, I'm doing something right. And they're not going to be all over me. That's good. And the challenge is too, is it's like in those meetings, then like helping to make sure that it's like, as that data is coming in, as we're getting our eyes on the data and we're getting visibility and cleaner pipeline, that then we're leveraging that data. Because for a rep, one of the worst things is if I am doing the admin, which I hate, and then you're not doing anything with the data. That it's like, I've spent all this time, but you're still asking me the same exact questions that I'm giving to you ahead of time. So making sure that it's like, okay, we're leveraging that, and it makes those meetings more meaty, more beneficial, the strategy versus compliance interrogations.
Yeah.
Super.
I'll even add a comment too. You mentioned earlier how, sometimes a leader will try to derail a meeting because they weren't prepared, and they'll point to some data that they think is incorrect. I've even noticed that on calls where people will point to a metric and be like, oh, I don't know if I don't know if I agree with that number. But the fact that we can drill in and instantly see the data that makes up that metric immediately kind of squashes any, rebuttal they may have to it, because you can see exactly what makes that up. And then they're like, oh, that deal must have changed in the last 30 minutes. I didn't realize that. I'll ping the rep. And, and then we usually get it cleaned up on the fly and we can continue with the discussion. So that's just been really helpful to like be live, clean it up, and avoid those costly time sucks of data discrepancies.
Absolutely. Well, then it seems like then we can have the meaningful conversation. We're not so much stuck on, is this correct? Is that updated? And it's more about, okay, how do we move these deals forward?
Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool. Love that. Okay. So you've talked about some great things that you guys have done to make changes. So, what I'm curious about is, what sort of positive impact have you seen at Workiva with these changes?
Yeah. So it's definitely, in the similar theme, right? We've definitely spent less time talking about data cleanliness, arguing about deals, that sort of thing. I do feel like our discussions on our calls are getting more strategic. We're actually able to talk about, how do we make this deal a platform deal, multi-solution deal, rather than just a point solution deal, right? That's a metric that we look at every week, and we'll inspect the deals that aren't multi-solution and say, like, well, how can we add more products to this? Do you need help? Do you need an executive sponsor to come in? Do we need to engage our value management team so they can understand the ROI and the full picture of what we do as a company? And so we've actually, I would say it's elevated the conversation, on those calls, and has gotten leadership involved earlier as well, right? I think they can just see what's real now, I guess is how I would say it, right? Before, there was a lot of fluff in the pipeline. There was a lot of deals, a lot of stuff that was just rolled over quarter to quarter to quarter. And you can see that now. You can see the push count on these deals. You can see how long they've been in stages. Like stalled pipeline, for example, is one of our metrics that we look at weekly. And so you can see, oh, these deals are stalled. Are they real, or do we need to push them out or close them out? And so all of these things have really helped, just focus our discussions on something, that's higher level and more strategic.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love with getting leadership engaged, earlier, in being able to have more strategic conversations. Sometimes you bring leadership into a bad deal and it's like we've completely wasted their time. So the fact that you've been able to clean up the pipeline and been able to, identify what's real, is crucial. I'm curious is, with the pipeline hygiene, getting, cleaner, I'm curious to see, how that's helped with, getting visibility of early warning signs and, surfacing that risk so that leadership knows, this is the deal that, takes priority. These are deals that we should be focused on. How has that helped?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you talk about risk. My mind immediately goes to, when we first cleaned up the pipeline, we thought there was so much risk in the pipeline because we were used to such a higher pipeline coverage. So we used to target 5, maybe 6x pipeline coverage to our targets, because there was just a lot of junk in there. And so that's what we were thinking we needed, right? Because that's what our models showed. When we first brought on exactly forecasting and immediately saw this cleanup of our pipeline, we dropped to like a 3x multiple, which was scary for us as an organization, but we're still seeing sales success from it, right? And so I guess that was, maybe something, a side point I wanted to bring up. But yeah, in terms of getting leaders in earlier, we've just seen so many as you know, on our forecast calls, so many different leaders are like, hey, get me involved in that deal. I have a connection at that company, right? Like, there's just all these different deal reviews that our team has scheduled as a result of these forecast calls that we weren't doing before, because we just know, like, oh, you know, we can make an impact here. There is time, you know, to get the right folks involved earlier. So
yeah, well, and sometimes you wait way too long. It's like they wait until it's like the last week, and it's like, I need to bring this deal over the line to win, but it's like you haven't even gotten to legal. Like, you're still in negotiation, and you think that getting, you know, bringing the CRO on the call is going to just close it. Like, there's a process in place. So helping, you know, to know, like, okay, when is that, this is a real deal, you know, when is, you know, they start to see that it's like, oh, I know someone here. I can get engaged. I can be helpful in this deal now. That's all very beneficial early on. I love the point that you made with the coverage and how much pipeline is needed, because I think, you know, one of my biggest pet peeves is when organizations say, like, you must have 3x, 4x, 5x pipeline. That it's like, whatever number you tell the rep, they're magically going to come up with that pipeline. They're either going to, it's like account planning, and they create an opportunity, but they're not even engaged. Like, there's no you know, true opportunity. There's no you know, strategic objective that the customer is looking to solve or anything like that. But it just ends up being just like placeholders or deals that are pushed multiple times. So it's, you know, I have always believed, you know, and exactly as a big, you know, proponent of this, of like, it of course, 3x makes you feel healthy, healthier, you know, 6x makes you feel real healthy. But if it's bad pipeline, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, doing sales with goggles on. It's like you have blinders on and you don't have the visibility that you need. So it's seeing that you've gone down to that 3x pipeline, but of solid pipeline of deals that have potential to win. And yes, there's still pushes, especially in this economy where it's like, ooh, I mean, sometimes getting a deal closed there's lots of hoops that you have to jump through. But I love that, you know, that realization of now we have healthy, solid pipeline, and we can easily click in to see if we should feel confident about the pipeline, or if it's inflated and giving us a false sense of security. Very good. So you mentioned that there was some other positive, areas, key areas that, had you've seen success in. So I'm curious if you've got like any stories of, some, of wins, or of how, you've been able to really hone the process to win more deals.
Yeah. I do have a story fairly recently, actually. We had a prospect who we were working with, or it might have been a customer, but we were in negotiations with them, and we were kind of hitting a standstill, right? They had some very specific requirements regarding the timing, price increases that they wanted, all these different, red lines essentially. And on one of our forecast calls, like the different sales leaders actually got together and strategized, how can we get this deal across the finish line? What have we done on some of our other teams with, some of these weird requests they had? And so we kind of had, 5-10 minutes of just like strategy. And we ultimately ended up landing this deal. It was a really solid deal, great value. We ended up locking them in for 5 years as well, like one of our longest deal cycles as well.
Awesome.
And that was just really cool to see, because typically our forecast calls never got that deep, right? We were still just kind of up here talking about inconsistencies and that sort of thing. But we've had the chance to have more of those really focused discussions, just because we've gotten all the fluff and the garbage and the cleanliness talks out of the way, and we can really go deeper. So that was a fun story recently.
Oh, I love that. We call that bringing the village in. So it's like, getting the exactly village together of like, hey, how do we strategically take this to the next level? And to be just you and your manager, it's like, okay, like bring in the other heads, like bring in the, more brains to come together to see like, okay, over here, this team had a really successful opportunity. What did you do? So I love that, strategizing together, using the wins and the successes to really dig in deep, and to walk away with a 5-year deal is amazing. So love that. So, you've talked a lot about pipeline hygiene, and one of the, comments in the chat was, it's such a manual process. So you've been able to do a lot of automation, things like that, to really help drive that pipeline hygiene. So I'm curious of, with the increased visibility, with automation in place, how has this helped you save time? What does that look like for Workiva?
Yeah. So part of our, proof of, we had to make a presentation to the software committee to basically say, hey, we want to get this software. And one of the things we actually documented as one of our problems and ultimate goals for bringing on XF was our sales leaders on average were spending between 2 to 4 hours a week just wrapping their heads around what was going on in their pipeline, right? Because there was reporting happening everywhere. We still, it's embarrassing to say, but we still had sales leaders using spreadsheet deal trackers, right? Just a couple of years ago, tracking their deals, and they would pop in a new Salesforce report each day to get new data in there. And it was, we were not elevated in regards to our forecasting process for, a variety of reasons. But we've seen that time savings essentially go, down to zero now at this point. They're all using the same process. They're all seeing the same, screen that they come in and can drill into everything. The other thing too that's actually helped, because we used to get a lot of questions on this, was what changed in my pipeline week over week or from last month, right? Because sometimes, Salesforce is really good at showing you today's data, but how can I reconcile what's happened from a week ago or a month ago? And so we'd always get questions for that, and we'd have to go pull a report from the warehouse and, figure out, okay, well, here's your change report, and this is what, took place. But now we have the Flowlytics feature in XF, which shows you can filter it to different time periods. All right, I want to see the pipeline last week and this week, and show me what changed, right? Oh, I had these 3 commit deals go to close 1. I lost a commit deal. Why, right? And so that's actually probably been the most, the biggest favorite visual of all of our sales leaders. I've probably gotten the most comments on that one, because they can actually see exactly what took place in terms of how their pipeline changed week over week, month over month, even quarter over quarter. And so that's been a huge time savings, not only for our sales leaders, but even for me, because I was pulling a lot of those reports prior to
sure. Well, it's the first question when you're in, you'll have, forecast call on Friday, you come back on Monday, and it's wait, what happened to the 500K that we were talking about? We were so confident about. Where did it go? It's always the first question that comes up. So yeah, to be able to see those changes everywhere and be able to get answers, to understand why it's gone up, why it's gone down, what are the good things, what are the bad things, and ultimately, how is this affecting the path to hit the number? If a deal pushes or is lost, is that a deal that we were relying on that now do we need to game plan? Do we need to, shift course and figure out, are there deals that we can pull in from next quarter to be able to still have that successful period? Very good. Love that. All right. Well, that was great on that first myth. So second myth is it's too difficult to cut through the intuition bias. So we know we've got, these 2 personalities of sellers, management. It's not just the seller, management has happy ears, over optimistic. They think everything's going to win. They think everything is greater than it really is. And then you have the opposite of that is the sandbaggers. So whether it's because they're sandbagging because they want to stay out of the hot seat, they want to stay off the radar, or they're just super conservative. And it's I just don't know if this is a deal to commit yet. And so it's being able to cut through both of those different personalities, because you need confidence in the forecast, confidence in what's being rolled up, and if you've got the over optimistic and then you end up completely missing your number, then you're surprised at the end, or you are super conservative and then you come in way over, well, that presents its own challenges, although it's exciting. But then it's like, were we prepared to pay out all that commission? Do we have to move money around? What's happening? So there's lots of different things that, when you don't have just the accuracy and that vision, you start missing numbers and just not trusting what's in the pipeline. So Grant, I'm curious, with Workiva, how you were able to tackle this challenge of cutting through intuition bias.
Yeah. So, I mean, how I look at it is there's kind of a toolkit, right? Like every leader probably has a few different things that they need to be looking at to be successful in forecasting. And we utilize, quite a few, right? Probably the biggest one, right? And it's the hot topic right now is AI, right? Machine learning. And that's something we've been able to utilize within Exactly. Took a quarter or two to come up to speed, but once it's kind of learned our behaviors, it's been really cool to see kind of this unbiased, predictive model approach to, what it thinks we're going to sell. And so we've actually been tracking, and it's been really close. It's scary close sometimes in terms of, what we think this team is going to call and versus where they ended up. And so that's one thing that I think is, as we're kind of in this new age of AI, to be able to learn how to utilize that in forecasting. Another one that we look at is point in time metrics. And so that would be, where were we last quarter or last year at this time in the quarter, at week 5 of the quarter, where probably week 3 right now. Because behavior for the most part is predictable. So you can see, like, all right, we had X amount of pipeline, last year at this time, and we closed this much, and it was in these stages, right? It was this far progressed. Like, oh, maybe this quarter we're not as progressed. We have more pipeline, but these are earlier stage deals, so there might be some risk there of hitting our number. And so that's another thing, right? That's easily found, right? And Exactly was under the I think pipeline trend tab that you can just drill right in and see it. So that I would probably say is our second favorite visual of our sales leaders, is being able to see, all right, last quarter, what did I have? Where was it within the sales stage, forecast category, and where did we end up? And so using that, and then we still have some, Excel models and things on the background that we run on the operational side that we test. And so it's kind of a mix of all of those, right? Like you have to just triangulate essentially, those different metrics to really see the full picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really, I love the word, triangulating the data, that it's like, it really is marrying together the art, the wisdom that these sales leaders, sales ops leaders, like, it's years of experience. The people on your team, who's happy here, who's overly optimistic, but then to have the data underneath it supporting it, that kind of, presses back up against, here's our historicals, and then here's what the AI is saying, and here's what's in the pipeline today, and here's where we're at. So you can take all those pieces together to really understand what's happening, and are we on track? I love the point in time data, that it's, that's one of my favorite pieces of Exactly forecasting, because it's, are we on track? Are we on track for the monthly basis? So to be able to see, are we on track to hit our number? Are we on track weekly? Are we on track for the quarter? So to see where we're at and how that compares, I'm glad that you're getting, the benefit out of that. How does that help you, when you realize, okay, we're behind? How are you changing, to understand what the coverage is, to give you insights? How are you correcting the path to know, okay, based on where we were last quarter, we were super behind. What do we do now?
Sure. Yeah, I think, maybe a couple quarters back, we had a quarter where the pipeline looked good, right? At a top of house level, like, oh, I think we got, even more pipeline than we had in previous quarters. But when we drilled into it, we saw that it was significantly fewer deals, right? So the deal sizes were a lot bigger, and thus I would say it was a riskier pipeline makeup than the previous quarter. So it actually kind of kicked off this whole, like, large deal focus. Like we were tracking these deals, like specific deals that like these will make or break our quarter. And so we those were a part of every discussion that we had, and the organization kind of rallied behind these. Our EVP of sales was on like sales calls at 4 a.m, his time, like helping get some of these deals across the line, because we knew like if we don't hit these particular ones, we probably don't have a shot. And so we did see some really tremendous success that quarter in closing a lot of those big deals, because we knew early on these are going to make or break our success this quarter. So
yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And to have that visibility to correct that path and get everybody engaged to still have a successful quarter is so crucial right now. So I'm curious to understand, with leveraging AI, for the first time and having that involved in this process, how has that impacted your accuracy and really helped the team to be more accurate?
Yeah. So I would say overall, we've seen a huge lift in our accuracy across the sales teams. Although initially it actually went down for like a quarter. And that was because we had such a change in pipeline hygiene and a shift in like our pipeline dropped so much, essentially because it was cleaner, that we kind of, it screwed up all our models, everything that we were looking at. And so we kind of had to adjust for a quarter. But now I would say we're at a much better place. I've even seen sales leaders who are almost hesitant to submit a number because I've worked with these people for 10 years. And so I know like who the sandbaggers are, who the happy years, or, the term you use. But like for some of these, more sandbagging type leaders, the burden of proof is in the data that like you can't call it, because we were all looking at the same metrics here on this screen, and your number doesn't make sense anymore. Like clearly you have more in there and you need to call that. And so I will say like it's kind of pulled up the sandbaggers a bit, because they just can't get away with that veil over their data, because it's just too easy to see when they're sandbagging now.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that it is, there is comfort for a lot of sales leaders of like, okay, if I stay conservative, then I can come in as the hero. Like we've seen that a lot, coming in to save the day, or I just don't know if some of these deals are going to come in. So being able to see that historical data and be able to see, okay, this is the proof of why we think this is what you're going to do. And then this is what, based on what's in your pipeline today, this is what the AI is saying that you're doing based on how you're working these actual deals today. So love that. Okay, great. So I want to move on to the last myth. We have a little bit of time with this, and we've got a couple questions that I want to get to. So on the third myth, it's that it's too difficult to adjust the way that our organization forecasts. So with this, that it's like someone had mentioned, like, what about the economic, the different changes in the macroeconomics, inflation, COVID, all of that, different things that are happening, like the process, what you did to win a deal 4 years ago might look different today. For most organizations, it does. The number of steps, the number, we've seen that you have to jump through more hoops. There's more people that are engaged. There's more roles. The process has gotten much more complicated. So the process of selling has to change as well, because you have to know that, okay, the sales cycle might look different. These are the people you need to engage with, and so on. So being able to be flexible and be able to make changes. One of the challenges that we have seen with other solutions is that it's, you can't wrap it around your process, or this takes an SOW every time I need to make a change, or I've got to contact support, or I need to have, a consultant that's going to build out reports for me, and so on. So it's just a process. What does it look like for Workiva to be able to optimize the process today?
Yeah. So I alluded to it earlier, right? I mean, we went through a pretty big transformation from spreadsheet trackers and stuff to where we're at today. And we're still growing, to be clear. It's not like we're we're 100% there. But I feel like there was probably 3 things that I can point to that, transformed our forecasting process. And I would say it was people, process, right, is the second one. And then the technology that we brought on board. So I mean, I guess maybe I'll start with people, right? The people, we recently as a company brought on board some leaders from more mature organizations. And so that really helped, drive the change here as well, right? Because if it was just me from the ops side saying, hey, all these other companies are doing it this way, we got to do this, right? Like we could make that case, and I think sales leadership would have got behind it. But we also had leaders come in from much more mature organizations that helped champion this change as well. And so that was, we kind of got lucky in that regards, from that perspective. And probably the thing that I controlled the least, right, in this whole process. So that's probably the first piece of it, I would say, is people. I guess I can jump into the process as well if we have time.
We can just briefly, process, and then technology.
Sure. Yeah. I'll try to be brief. So our process historically was twice a month. We were going over our forecast, and we moved that to weekly. We realized we need more eyes on these deals. This has to be a weekly process. And so we have weekly regional calls with our different regions: North America, EMEA, Asia Pacific, and different folks within the sales hierarchy are responsible for different things. So our reps are responsible for hygiene, like they have to have their sales force clean, right? And it'll be very obvious if it's not. At the frontline manager level, they're actually responsible for forecasting individual deals, which is a challenge, right? Sometimes you don't know which deals in or out, but that's really important to the organization to help us understand which ones we need to focus on. And we do that both from a account owner or account executive side of the house, and our specialists as well. So we have a specialist sales organization. So sometimes we're co-selling deals. So that's maybe another challenge that we ran into, but that we were able to accommodate in XF because they could support that specialist sales organization. And then the VPs own the actual call, right? And so like we have that accountability, and different folks are owning different parts of this forecast across it, right? And then twice a month, we actually roll up those numbers to the C-suite, to the board. So that's kind of our process, and different folks own different parts of that.
But it's nice too, because then you're rolling up a deal-backed forecast. So it's like, as you get up to the executive level, they can see then these are all of the deals. This is the path to hit that number. So if there is risk on the opportunities, if they're seeing alerts, if that health score is low, it's hold on here. You can drill in and be able to see, does this make sense? Can I have confidence in this number? And you can easily kind of see where there's additional risk, and where does the conversations where do we need to press in on this number? That's great. Yeah,
exactly. And we even on that point, we even have the ability to see, our account owner team or our AE is calling it, but our specialist teams are not calling a deal. And so those are highlighted in a report, and those we immediately go to, because they say, well, why are you not in agreement that this deal's in or out of the forecast? And so that's highlighted easily.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, very good. And then in terms of technology, being able to, like, as you go through, and it's like, okay, these are processes that need to change. How have you been able to have that flexibility and leverage that within exactly forecasting to make tweaks to things, to reports, to get everything into one place?
Yeah, for sure. So probably one of our biggest requirements when we were looking for a forecasting solution was that it could accommodate our specialist sales organization structure. So that was number one. And so I would encourage anybody that's looking for a tool, right? You need to make sure you're not trying to mesh everything of your processes into a tool, but that the tool can accommodate how you run your business. And so that was super helpful for us. But it also had a lot of the pre-canned reports and analytics in place for us to immediately level up our forecasting process and insights along with it. Also, what I found with the technology as well is if you can have something that's integrated in Salesforce, it's going to get used so much more than something that lives outside. Like for example, today our BI tool does not live in Salesforce. It's not nested. You know, you can't just get to it right there. And so folks have to go through their single sign-on, you know, and get to the BI tool a different way. And we see so much less usage where we have 100% usage of our sales leadership in exactly forecasting because it's right next to their reports in Salesforce. It's all in one spot. And so whenever possible, try to get your tools to be integrated because we've seen, you know, massive usage as a result of that as well.
That's a great point. Love that. Thank you, Grant. Couple of questions. So Heidi's asking about, you know, the point in time metrics, you know, how does, you know, the sales apps adapt when dealing with a volatile market? So we think of, you know, all the changes and stuff like that. It makes me think of the point in time metrics, but it also makes me think of being able to model off of the AI to see, you know, what happened in the last 3 quarters, 4 quarters, the last 2 quarters, the same time last year when you have like different supply chain and things like that. Is this something I would imagine? How have you guys dealt with this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't have a perfect answer because the volatile market is something that has at times, you know, hit our accuracy. You know, we've, you know, obviously COVID, nobody predicted that one. But I will say, like, we do keep track of this data, you know, years in the past. And so you can, if you get a hint of something, you can try to look for a similar time in the past of, you know, well, the markets were kind of getting a little frothy there, or you know, it seems like there's a downturn there. And so we've kind of tried to look at history, and the farther back you can go, the better. So that's been one way we've kind of looked at it. But you're right, the AI projection and, you know, yeah, I mean, I would say the AI projection has a pretty good pulse on like immediate changes. So if you start to see that precipice drop off or shoot up because of the market, that can catch it often maybe quicker than, you know, sales people or even myself just looking at, you know, kind of the data as a whole. So yeah, that's a hard one to answer well, but that's kind of how we look at it today.
Very good. And the last question is from Raman, and I hope I said that right, is how do you align the annual sales plan on a monthly basis with the forecasting of the pipeline?
Yeah, so I mean, we just went through our annual sales planning process. We utilize the pipeline, I would say, for a few quarters out. For the farther, like Q4 of this year, right? Like our pipeline is probably not going to be the best predictor or metric to look at, and so we're looking more at historical data, which we have the luxury of having because we've been selling since 2010. I understand for a startup that might be challenging, right? You're gonna have to go more off of TAM and then projections and different things like that. But yeah, I mean, we definitely use pipeline and forecasting metrics. And the way we look at it today, I would say we definitely use that to help predict maybe our first 2 quarters or so of the next year as we're going through our annual sales planning process. But anything beyond that, you know, our deal cycles aren't long enough to really warrant, you know, something that far out. We're probably talking 100 days, 120 days on average sales cycle. Anything beyond that, you're kind of looking at some big chunky deals maybe, but it's tough to use the pipeline that far out.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It really depends on the sales cycle time. So for exactly forecasting, we're giving you an AI number for this quarter and next quarter, and then using the historicals to help you understand, you know, what does the future contribution look like of deals that are not created yet, but are expected to be created. So giving you those different parameters, and then allowing you to see within, you can do an annual template, which will allow you to see, okay, here's my annual number. Here's all of the pipeline that's expected to close this quarter. You know, if you have a longer sales cycle, here's what's in, you know, commit, best case, upside, however you're doing that today to help you understand, and then giving you the metrics around those. But definitely the benefit is that you can do an annual template, you can do a monthly template or a quarterly template to surface up the data that you want and track against that based on those time periods. Great. Let's see. It looks like we might have just got one more question. Oh, Heidi says, thank you for answering the tough question, Grant. That's great. And then let's see, I think we just got a couple of comments. Great. Well, so awesome. Grant, we so appreciate you coming on here today and fielding all these tough questions. It's been great to hear from you. And I really appreciate you coming on to do this.
Yeah. Oh, it's my pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, and always happy to answer any other questions folks may have. You can hit me up on LinkedIn and we can talk more.
Great.
Absolutely. I will share Grant and Stephanie's LinkedIn and contact information to everyone on this call. Thank you again, Stephanie and Grant, for your wisdom and insights. I know the MSP community has found it so valuable. And thank you, everyone, for attending this event. Please stay tuned for the recording and the key takeaways. We will send them to you before the end of the day. And we will see you at the next event. Bye, everyone, and stay warm.
Thank you. Bye.